Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Welcome back to our makeshift COVID secure as can be studio. Welcome back, Kevin Nash, for part 5, mate. How are you, Kev?
I'm all right. Do you think people are getting fed up with me yet?
Never fed up with you, mate. There's been a really good response. Have you enjoyed doing them this far, mate?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I love talking fishing, don't I?
Yeah, mate. You've had
if there's a bit in there that can help people catch an extra carp, happy days.
You've had some experience, mate. It's been brilliant listening to them. Essentially, we're going to pick up from where we left off in the last part, and that was the sort of end of the production going out to China with Nash Tackle. But in terms of your fishing, it was waterways. So from that chapter, where did we move on to? Anywhere else domestically, or was it still, because we sort of rounded off on waterways?
Oh, I was fishing abroad, but yeah, domestically, I moved on to Starlane, ostensibly because I was fascinated by my observation with that carp, and the ring, blowback rig. It was a concept. I hadn't caught a carp on it. It just seemed to be the way to go. It looked great on paper or when I tied it, but I've seen a lot of rigs like that. But, I mentioned Starlane because I've fished it since the 70s, as I said right at the beginning of this. I've grown up with the water, and I had understood how much it had changed. It's been pressured, to this day since the 70s. So it's had 40 odd years. Is that right? Yeah, 40 odd years of nearly 50 years of carp fishing pressure. Some of the originals are still in there, not many, but some are still in there. But relentless pressure, and those carp had learnt everything. I've always said to Essex anglers who go on there, if you can consistently catch on Starlane, you can go anywhere and catch, and that's been proven. Essex anglers who've done their time on Starlane, have proven really good anglers.
Yeah.
First one that comes to mind is Dave Jules, and he can catch them from anywhere. So I wanted to go back there because I dabbled a bit a few years before, and I struggled. I caught, but I struggled. I'm very aware that the benchmark is consistency. Yeah, and I was far from consistent. So I thought, well, this is a good place to test this rig concept, because I know I'm going to go back on and struggle. I will make the point that, in my experience, one of the most difficult things to do is to go back to a water some years after you've fished it and been successful, because you're obviously still blinkered to how you did it before. And it can be enormously disappointing when you go on there thinking you're going to be the dog's bollocks again, and you fail miserably. So
bit of a fall from grace.
So that's kind of how I understood Starlane and the very valuable purpose it could have for me. So anyway, I turned up one afternoon after work. There's one end. There's a point called the Brickfield Point, which looks down the lake as well as to an island on the right of the swim. So you can fish along the front edge of the island, down the left side of it, or in the open water, or the left farm bank. Offers huge scope, more scope than the other swim on the lake, really. And then round the corner, behind the Brickfield Point, it goes into a bay where I'd had a lot of success in past years, very past years. And as I was found out, that had all changed. But anyway, there's a guy called Dave Potter on Brickfield Point. Many anglers in Essex will remember him. He was manager of Penge Angling, which today is angling director at Rayleigh. At Rayleigh. I think he's now still based in Waverley Valley, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so,
on the caravan park there. Good lad, I've known him. Well, I actually got him the job in Penge Angling back in the 70s. But anyway, he was on the point. So I went round the corner from him in the end, just really to be social, if anything. And like I said, I knew the swim very well. It was very kind to me. So we chatted all evening. Well, we both blanked. The only fish we saw was constant, regular activity of a fish rolling along the front of this island. He had rods on it, but never caught it. So in the morning, I got up at dawn or whatever, early, and then packed up and went to work, planning to come back that afternoon. Which I did. Dave was just packing up. He had enough.
Yeah.
He'd blanked. As we was talking again, I saw a fish roll along the front of the island. I remarked on it, and he said, I've been doing it all day like it was yesterday. You thought it was just the same fish. Clearly quite a good one. So without further ado, I shot round to a swim which, if you're looking at that island, it's over to the right. So from that swim, you can cast down the side of that island. So instead of casting across to it like Dave was, I could cast down the side of it. And the reason I did that, because I knew from past years how line angle was so important at Starlane. You could fish one swim and catch very little, but attack it from another line angle and do really well. I'd learnt that at Starlane, and so Dave wasn't being successful with that carp casting across. So I thought I'd go along, go around, and change the line angle and cast down the island. I also decided to put the wing blowback rig out. So I cast that out, and it was a little more than 10 minutes. In fact, I was still messing around with third rod, and I hadn't even put my landing net up. I got this really weird twitchy take start. The bobbin was just bouncing up and down a couple of inches. And then after by the time probably I was thinking I'll hit it. So I don't know. It seemed a lifetime, let's say 10, 15 seconds. It slowly went up and then roared off. I leant into it. I thought, oh dear, I've got a good carp on here, but I haven't got a landing net. But fortunately, Frank, the owner, was down the other end, and he heard me alarm and he come walking up. There was one really good fish in Starlane, mid-30, really good fish. Really had desired and wanted to catch it. It was a reason I decided also to have a go at it, because it's a mid-30, big fish for Essex, and that's what I landed.
No way.
It wasn't a regular caught fish, come out once a year, I think, on average. So first session, I caught it. I suppose you say second session, wouldn't you? Because it was a second afternoon. And I only had to rig out in the water 10 minutes. And I think what was really relevant to me was a take. As I said, that kind of twitchy take, like, what's happened here? Can't get off. What's going on? I normally can deal with this. I've seen that so often since, and I absolutely believe probably the reason I caught that carp was because of the ring blowout rig, and that was the first carp in the world caught on that rig.
No, what a starting point that is.
So you can imagine, I've got a fair bit of confidence that I'm onto something here.
Yeah.
In
terms of the fight, the fish, when did you know it was that fish? Because obviously, as you say, in terms of size and in terms of sort of grandeur in that setting, it's a mega fish.
It's a funny thing. I don't know whether you've ever been there, but you kind of disregard a fish. It never occurs that you'll catch it.
No,
that fish had been there, as I say, some years, and I'd definitely been on there when it was in there, but it was such a rarely caught fish that it just never occurred to me that I would have hooked that. It was only to answer you. It was when Frank went to net it.
Really?
Just as he slipped the net under it, he told me what I had. Couldn't believe it.
And baits wise, what were you approaching it with?
Scopex Squid, of course.
Oh,
So everything and anyone was on Scopex Squid then.
Yeah. What a capture, mate, in terms of a starting point coming back. Because as you said before, the time that you went and flitted and you found it quite difficult to then going on and your second session, well, technically your first or second session, you had that fish. That's a massive massive turnaround. So from there on in terms of Starlane, I mean, was that chapter closed, or was there still more experimentation to do?
Well, that come later. As I say, I was very busy into work, so I didn't have a target, Walter. Yeah, well, I did have. It lasted 24 hours. I had gone on there with the target of hopefully catching that fish, but like I said, it never occurred to me that it was the first fish I would hook. So I think I said in one of the earlier podcasts, you need to plan and have another Walter in your mind or your ticket. So in this case, I didn't. So it never occurred to me. I'd catch it in 24 hours, and apart from that, I didn't have a real Walter in mind at the time, and I was still really into me foreign adventures. They just kept popping up out of nowhere. That previous winter, do you remember I mentioned that big tackle show, Janssen's in Belgium?
I remember, yeah.
Well, I went along to that, and there was a little tiny stand. A couple of guys were selling fishing holidays, in essence, to a lake in Romania called Lake Sarulesti or something.
Oh, yeah.
I just, they had a video, and I just saw these huge carp. Gary was with me. I just said, I got to go. Just never seen carp so big. So you could only get on there if you had a party. Just couldn't book it for yourself. So I got a group of anglers together. Dave Jordan, I mentioned, was one of them. Gary, Jeff Pink, late Jeff Pink, bless him. Nigel Botherway and his mate Steve. I think it was about a group of about 8, 12 of us went. Which was, I reckon, in the May, June.
Okay.
Again, another saga, typical saga of luggage and all that.
Smuggling again, Kev, yeah?
Yeah, well, me and Gary are just thinking bait, and Gary more than me. We were just going in our underpants, providing we had enough bait. And we was really stressing over the bait because luggage was a real limited. Hand luggage, definitely 5 kilos. In fact, I pulled a really naughty stroke. He backfired on me. We got to the gate at the airport, and got my driver to come with me. And he was sitting in a seat on the way to the security, the public area, with this carry-all with 25 kilos of bodies in. I checked me hand luggage in, and they confirmed 5 kilos. I walked back, gave him that bag, and picked up the other one. But what I hadn't taken into account, it was a walk to the airport, so to the plane. So I've got bloody 25 kilo carry-all over my shoulder. They're not the most comfortable things. So I struggled to the airport. I'll never forget, I got to the steps, and the air hostess went berserk at me. So, but I thought I'm going to get them nicked here, but she just said put them down there. So at the top of the steps, I just put them just inside where they make the drinks and beverages. So luckily, I got away with it.
Yeah, happy days.
It bit me in the arse though. We arrived, and when we got to Lake, we were organising all the gear, out the motor, and everyone's getting all the gear, and we're being rapidly ferried off to various swims. We forgot the carry-all. And I went back later, and it disappeared. More of that later. So we lost that surplus of bait anyway. But we got to Romania. I remember the drive. I remember being almost shocked at how the state of the country, how poor it was. We took this so-called main road, like their M1, from Bucharest to the lake, and it's their equivalent of the M1, but it had potholes all the way along it, and so the coach would be driving along. You see these huge potholes, so he'd just steer around it to the other side of the road with oncoming traffic. I'm really cool about things like that. I think it's because I haven't got a brain that thinks too much. That I could get killed. I was watching Dave Jules, and Dave. Anyone knows Dave? That is one hard guy. One hard guy. Yeah. hairy arse bricky, but so he can handle himself. You know, I'd watch him going green and whatever. You know, he was absolutely shitting himself. You know, any moment now, I'm going to have a head on, get all wiped out. But yeah, I'm telling you that story because I'll come back to the relevant point of that later. But yeah, we got to the lake and so we nearly wiped out a horse and cart. I remember now.
A horse and cart.
Yeah, a horse and cart on the main road, and as you could see a mattress in the back. Yeah, that was their house. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, so but the story of the lake, the Dictator, Shoskovsky, was it or something? Something like that. The Romanian, the Dictator at the time, he had this vision of connecting Bucharest to the sea, and so he bulldozed all the valleys, right? So, the distance out of Bucharest up into the sea, and then they flooded it. They gave people 3 days to get out.
Wow!
Just flattened the villages and everything. So that's some of the stuff he was fishing over. Villages, and in some of those villages there was fish farms. So the carp just swam out into this huge fertile lake. It was previously flooded land, and it was, I think, really fertile farmland. I remember one swim we fished. There was a cliff behind, a sheer cliff, must have been 20, 30 foot high, and that was where the wave action just washed away all the soil. So you just had this, literally 20, 30 foot high cliff left. There was another famous swim called the Churchyard. In fact, that's where Jeff Pink fished.
Yeah.
And again, the wave action, the Churchyard must have been on a hillside, and the wave action had worn away all the soil and the graves. I think Jeff used a femur as his back rod rest, a human femur.
Yeah.
Skulls and everything hanging around. That was...
It's a crazy... But I remember talking to Rob Hughes about similar experiences with regards to, bodies and bones being scattered around when the water levels fluctuate and the sort of wave action.
Yeah, that's right, because Rob afterwards started doing trips out there. He'd done it. The owner was a guy called Raduta. I didn't take to him at all. Found him a very cold man. And with me, he was very pushy. The time I was there, he was constantly asking me questions and pushing me. Would I run trips out there? Like I said earlier, I go fishing. Not to think how can I make a buck here. And I would love to go on back. I actually never went back because of him. But
really,
yeah, he was an awful man. In essence, I can't get sued for this, but interesting story. He rocketed to fame because he was a tennis coach, and he coached Nashy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, who was Romania's first tennis champion. You're the tennis guy, that's right, isn't it?
You're preaching to the choir here.
Right.
Kev.
Right. He was one of Romania's first. And in fact, in the eyes of the government, he put Romania on the map.
Yeah.
As if no one had ever heard of Romania in the world until then. And his reward was to be given, I guess, the lease of that. They gave it to him, but they was given the lease on this huge lake.
Yeah.
I think primarily probably for the hunting and the zander fishing, because that's how it got discovered as a carp lake. This guy who was pushing he was a Belgian guy pushing the carp fishing, actually went to Romania for the zander fishing.
Right.
As you may know, zander are really prized in Europe, especially Holland and Belgium. And he also was offering hunting parties. He had a lodge on the end, this most stunning marble villa. It wouldn't have been out of place in the richest parts of Spain. It was a marvellous villa, and that was basically for his guests that come and stay at, which were the very rich Europeans, knowing they could go there and be completely hidden from paparazzi and cameras and all that, and act like people behaving badly. They used to bring the prostitutes, little boys and girls in from Bucharest, for example. What was it? It was we was told it was $2,000 for a shot at a bear. A shot.
Wow.
not to kill it. So but I remember one day when we arrived, actually, there was clay pigeon shooting, and a stray dog ran past, and one just swung his dog around, his shotgun around and shot it. Yeah. Oh, so cold, people. So cold, people.
Sounds like not particularly nice chap.
So I can't remember how we got our designated swims, but we got our swims, and then we was taken to the swim by a boat, ex-military boat. And then that's how it all started. So we all spaced miles apart, round this lake, huge lake complex. Me and Gary were together. I think we spent a couple of days in the first swim with no sign of carp. So we asked the boatman if we could move. But like I said, this guy in this military boat dropped you off in your swim, and then he'd bring you round breakfast and an evening meal. Nice. Inverted comp. You say nice. I've never had food like it.
What? It can't be worse than China, mate, surely, and snakes and things like that. Really? What did they send you?
He had a big tin, pot. It was the same meal both days, morning and evening, and basically he gave you a roll and some of this stuff inside, which it was water basically with a greasy scum on top and lumps of grey meat floating around in it, and bits of cabbage or whatever. It was fucking disgusting. Virtually unedible.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd taken Vesta chow mein. It's dried. I don't know if anyone knows a Vesta, but it's basically a dried Chinese meal, chow mein, where you just put it in water and blow. I suppose the modern equivalent would be like a pot noodle. Yeah. I'd taken one of them. Luckily, well, not luckily. I'll tell you about that later. But Pinky took military rations. Yeah. So he was saved. But other than that one meal, I spent 5 to 7 days looking forward to eating. We was slaughtered. It shows you how bad Gary wouldn't eat it. Really? After one day, even he wouldn't eat it. But we chatted up the boatman, and apparently there was a shop nearby where we could get basics like apple. Oh, they used to give an apple as well. Right. So we used to save, whenever he brought the meal round, we'd grab all the bread and maybe blag another roll out of him and say, no, we don't want that other shit. And then we'd give him our shopping list, so jam and cheese. He's almost like Canaries again, living on basically jam, cheese and apples, but we got by that way. But, there's a lovely story here, actually, if you ever had Nigel Botherway on. We had no mobiles. This is in the days where mobile didn't connect with different countries. You had a mobile, you only had it in your own country. You had to have a different type of phone, which was a fortune. And so none of us had mobiles, so we started this system of communicating via the boatman. Yeah, we knew the other swims because they were numbered. Yeah, everyone had a number, I think the party had a number actually. So we was like 1. Yeah. Nigel and Steve are like 4. Yeah, and so we'd write notes and just put the number on, give it to the boatman because he couldn't speak a word of English. So like 4, he'd know he'd have to give it to party 4. Anyway, Nigel has sent us a cocky little note about our boilies. So we knew that those two had blagged our boilies. So I had to get them back. So I'd mentioned how shit the food was, but luckily we found ways around that. I got a message back. Bloody is horrible. What have you found? So I said, I wrote a letter saying we'd found an awesome takeaway in Bucharest, right? Where we gave you phoned in, and they would deliver it to the lake, and the boatman would bring it over. Nice. I said awesome. I was just little detail of all the great dishes, And I said, the phone number is, and I wrote the phone number down. And then I got some paper of water and dripped out the last 3 numbers. And Nigel, at the end of when we saw Nigel at the end of the trip, the first thing he come up to me, he said, "That was a fucking wind up about that phone number." When don't tell me that, it really got him going the whole week.
It's like the old Da Vinci Code trying to find the last 3 digits.
So we did have some fun, but
What were your feelings when you first arrived on the walk? Because obviously you'd seen massive carp. It was relatively unknown, and you were sort of dropped off. What were you daunted? Did you think it was going to be easy, or was it just, I don't know, you're quite used to continental fishing by now, aren't you? So just another new adventure.
I'm really excited. Daunted, no. I think amazed actually at the size of it. We're talking, I don't know how many acres that lake is, but it's bloody huge. Like I said, there's whole villages under it, whole forests, and orchards and everything. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. I'd known the last 2 parties that had gone out there, what they caught, which was very little.
Really?
Yeah, which is why me and Gary elected to move, a lot, whereas everyone else stayed in the swims. We busted our balls on that place. I think we moved 6 times, a lot of rowing. And we was unlucky. Well, I was unlucky. On one move, we went in next to Dave Jolderson. That was funny, actually. Raduta used to drive around in, like I said, one of these military boats. It was different from the guy who used to punt around the lake. You'd hear it start up at his villa. And Jolderson was up from us about 100 yards, and I just watched him row his baits out to the far side. It's like a very wide river, this piece of the lake was fishing, and he'd rowed his baits like a couple 100 metres to the far side, and he was using a floating braid, and watched him come back, and I could see his braid still on the surface, and I saw him disappear in his bivvy, and I heard this huge boat engine start up, and Raduta's come roaring up the lake, and you heard the engine hit his lines. It like lost a semi-beat. It's everyone.
Oh, no.
And I can still see it this day. He's holding 2 of his rods, and the line just disappeared in a second. He actually blew the rubber gaskets off the spools.
Oh, no.
Look on his face. He got, say, all 3 rods done in like 2 seconds.
That he's happy, isn't he?
That's funny. But anyway, that evening, Raduta come up and invited us all for a sightseeing trip around the lake. Well, number 1, I haven't had to take. I'm desperate to have a bite. Number 2, I've had a gut for the Raduta anyway. So I said I weren't going. I'd watch the rods. So Dave and Gary went, and then I got a take. I was cooking me chow mein. I say I was just so desperate to have something decent to eat. My mouth had been watering. So I thought, well, Gary's out of the way, so I'll cook me chow mein. So I got that on the cook, and I got a take. And I'm playing it, and it snagged halfway over in open water. So I'm assuming it snagged on another line that someone's got cut off on, probably by Raduta, and it's splashy on the surface. Bloody big fish, crashy on the surface, and something gave. It was a hook, if I remember. The hook parted company with the carp, and I stepped back and knocked me stove over and lost me bloody chow mein as well.
No, double bubble.
Oh, I was in a fucking foul mood by the time Basie got back, I'll tell you. But the nearest we come to success, it was a last move actually. I caught the carp after. I hooked the carp after that. It was the last move. We went past where Pinky and his friend were fishing on the grave yard.
Yeah.
And there was a point there which looked out over a massive expanse of water, and to the right, like a channel, again like a very wide river. So Gary just fished around the corner, and he spotted some fish out in the distance. It turned out to be what's that? Plankton feeding carp. Can't think. The one that eats plankton.
The big head carp things.
Well, they are huge.
I know what you mean,
I can't think. Anyway, it turned out to be them on the surface. But anyway, in the night, he got a couple of takes and had a couple of carp. They weren't that big from memory, 20s.
Right.
Bearing in mind, this place I think did a 60 or 70 pound common.
Yeah. In
fact, Tim Paisley caught a huge one there.
Yeah.
I remember because he wrote about it for like 8 issues of Carp World. Last month, and I remember I mentioned my God, bless him. I fished on the point and I blanked. I'll never forget. As we were pulling off, it's the last afternoon, and then we was going back to do the night. Everyone, I think we must have had to leave early because Raduta asked us all to go back and basically. I think he offered accommodation at the villa.
Okay.
He did actually. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute. So, we're packing up. These couple of Swedish guys come over. They knew me, so made them very welcome. And we gave them all our bait. And they contacted me a couple of weeks later. They had the biggest hit in Romania in history at the lake. Yeah, so
wrong week, Kev.
Wrong week. Yeah, we found a spot in the end. They had all our bait, and they broke every blooming record on that lake.
That's mad. What?
Yeah, they've been good friends ever since, actually. But so we then went back to the villa. Everyone, like I said, decided to stay, but fished to the end. So me and Basie fished outside his villa, and we were all talking with Pinky and that lot, and. I had a bite. I suppose I'm 400 or 500 yards away from me, probably. Gone running back. Gary beat me to it, picked up the rod. I took the rod off him, played it for 30 seconds and bloody hook fell out again.
No.
So it weren't meant to be that week.
You've not had some luck in that trip, have you?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I've always said that 7 days often really isn't enough. When it takes you 7 days to learn it, and then another 7 days to catch them all. And as I've proven, if we stayed on that point, just one more day, and we really started having it off.
Do you think it was anything? Obviously, location's important. You've moved a lot as well within that week, as opposed to the rest of the group. Was there any sort of differentiation in terms of catch rates with regards to the rest of the party? Did they manage to catch a few, or was it pretty hard pickings or slim pickings all round?
Do you know what? I can't think of anyone catching. I've got a feeling Jeff Pink and his mate had a couple, but nothing big. There's nothing big take a call, I'll tell you that. I think Nigel Botherway and Steve, they might have had a grass carp.
Okay.
But I can't think of anything being caught. Gary might have been the most successful. So I think Gary had 220s. But considering, there's 50, 60, 70, God knows what in there. Can't remember at the time there. It was very disappointing, very disappointing. But I was going to tell you a story about that road. So the journey back, again, Dave Jawson wetting himself. But the power that Raduta had, he was a clever bugger, I'm sure. He decided to hold the World Carp Championships there. Well, there wasn't a World Carping Championships to this time. He kind of made it up. And so he's gone to the government. Oh, wow. Now Romania can be on the map twice. For holding the world's first carp championships, this major event, which is equivalent to the Olympics. I guess he probably sold it to them. So he got them to build a motorway to the lake from the airport. And they, because of all the snags, because it was so snaggy, for the championships, they dropped the level of the lake. They had 1,500 soldiers in there clearing out snags. That is power, isn't it?
That is mega, isn't it?
That is power when you get the government to build you a bloody road and lend you 1,500 soldiers to clear out your snag issues. Yeah,
they're the type of mates you need.
They're the type of mates you need, isn't they? But
But in terms of tactics on Raduta, you said it was snaggy. Are we still talking about you using breakaway lead systems, blowback rigs or not? Or what sort of, how did you approach it, if you can remember?
I didn't use blowback rigs.
No.
It's just, it didn't need it.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer in keep your tackle as simple as possible. So just the hairs pinned to the back of the points. I can't remember if I used break-off leads, or let's put it this way, by this time I'm using them all the time if it's necessary. I don't think I told you actually, when me and Nigel went to Lac de Dare, we took the swim off of Dave Plummer's, say, and saw them losing fish, which is why I elected and told Nigel about the break-off rigs, and we wouldn't have landed those carp without them. So they were just, they either didn't know they was hooked, which gave us the opportunity to stop them going into the cut-off trees, or they just went over the top of the cut-off trees because they didn't have the lead holding them down. It's now become an essential part of my fishing, and it's always fascinated me. It took 15, 20 years before people really started using break-off leads. A number of people I used to say, well, look, you lose a lead. Yeah, okay, mate. It costs you £1. If I give you a quid, give me a quid, you'll catch a 30 or 40 pounder. You would, wouldn't you? So it was bizarre how long it took people to get it, but such a significant edge in landing quantities of fish. Yeah.
Leaving that trip, that Romanian trip, how were your thoughts? Were you thirsty to get back, or were you sort of knowing that you probably wouldn't have the time to be able to get back on there?
No, it was neither of those.
Was it not?
I was so torn. I really wanted to go back, but like I said, I just had a gut full of Raduta. Every day I had him in me swim. In fact, when I got back, I wrote the rules for him. One thing I think he was more concerned about the safety of his carp than he was about human beings. Nigel and Steve got what's called the gypsy camp, which, surprise, surprise, was a swim right next to a gypsy camp. There was people just living under corrugated iron, all around there. The poverty was unbelievable. Yeah. And so there was one area called the gypsy camp. They got there and they were immediately overrun with scallywags. Bless them. Nigel was a shrewd bugger. They picked out one of the biggest, toughest kids. And they drew a circle round their bivvies. Yeah. And done some deal with him that none of his mates could step in the circle. They paid him a little bit, so they had the gypsy guard. But Nigel said to me one day that something had happened. I don't know, maybe the kids had been getting out of control, and he said, we'd tell Raduta. And they just all panicked and run. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they'd be shooting the gypsies even over there.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty lawless place.
Yes.
My other big memory was that night was on that point next to the graveyard. We had a young lad with us who he was fishing with Pinky and his mate, and he come round to me and he said, there's an upturned boat in the middle of a lake. It was a real calm moonlit night. So I walked, there's two things I remember about this. So I walked around this bay, past where a lot of the graveyard was, and there's various bones glinting in the moonlight. And I don't know, it's imagination, but it just suddenly, it was as if I was walking into a deep freezer. The air just suddenly went so cold. I'm sure I didn't make it up. It really felt a sinister place. Anyway, I got up to Pinky and we looked out, and I guess half, 3/4 mile out was this upturned boat. We've all got a real sick feeling. Who is it? Who's drowned? So anyway, I went back and got our boat and went out there, and it was a mattress. Oh, just so relieved, so relieved.
Too right.
An old mattress floating across there. But I always remember that. Really awful, foreboding feeling. As we was rowing out. I'd had the similar feeling before, actually.
Really?
I was out on a ferry to do a tackle show in Holland the night of the Zeebrugge disaster.
Oh
I don't know how many readers know that, but basically it was a car ferry coming out of a port called Zeebrugge in Belgium, innit?
Yeah.
And someone forgot to put the doors up.
Secure it, yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, it got out and just literally flooded and turned turtle. And we steamed past it upside down, you know, its hull up. And
did you actually go past it?
oh, yeah.
Oh, mate.
Very near it. Its hull was upside down. Well, it was up, hull up. And awful feeling on the plane, on the boat, you know, called sailors, you know, fellow colleagues, you know, it was awful fear. I'll never forget that one either.
Yeah, but that on Raduta in Romania is like you're at a graveyard as well. You've got that whole eeriness. That's just, yeah, it's not nice, is it?
In summary, so yeah, massive adventure, as I say, going to a country like that. They're just so undeveloped, so poor. That was a big eye opener. The biggest lake I've ever fished before or since. You know, saying. You know, the challenges and adventures of that, you know, so it was just, you know, an amazing adventure. You know, I'll never forget it. You know, I would have liked to have come home with dirty great carp, but it wasn't to be, and I never went back. And said I got distracted with Italy, I think, next.
Did you go to Italy next? Did you? So the whole European broadening your horizons is still go, mate.
I'm just loving that travelling thing. You know, anywhere where there's carp, where loads of English anglers aren't going, you know, really interested me. Yeah.
What drove you to Italy then? Was there any specific venue or?
It all started with from when I was a rod consultant for Dara.
Okay.
Dara's distributor in Italy was a company called Fassa, and as they was distributing Dara Kevin Nash rods. Fassa become interested in the actual Nash brand, and so I started distributing Nash tackle through them. And one of their salesmen I got on really friendly with, he's from the Bologna area, and meanwhile Ronnie has got very friendly with one of Italian's top carp anglers, and he was going over there. And this guy, he got to know, a story got back to us that there's a lake in the Alps that this guy had caught carp to, I think, 30 kilos in. Yeah, big fish in those days.
Yeah.
It was either 30 or 28 kilos, something like that. Excuse me, I just need a drink.
Yeah, no worries.
It was a bizarre setup. It was a huge lake, 2,000 hectares, if I remember. Glacial lake, very deep. And in summer, the carp were really difficult to catch. There wasn't that many in there, and they just could be anywhere, you know, in this huge lake, and massive reed beds around it. But in winter, there was an island. Thinking back, I guess it was about 200 metres from the bank, probably, from memory, 3-4 acres, 5 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it had a house on it. All the windows were shuttered up. Reminded me of the Amy DeVille horror. Anyone seen that film? It had all the animals on it. I'll come back to in a minute. Anyway, around this island was all trees had fallen in, and it was shallow. I don't think it was more than 6 foot deep, and that's where all the carp went to in winter. Yeah. So quite bizarre. Yeah, got this huge lake, massive depths, and yet all the carp went to this island because of the wood in the winter. And so that was the time to go, spring. So we had all the information. So me and Jeff Pink went. I think it was April. Once we'd arranged it, you know, say the Italian Fassa rep is going to pick us up from the Bologna airport and take us up into the Alps. That got back to his bosses, and the next thing I know, they want to film us, which really pissed me off. Like I said,
you've had a few suspect camera crews just join you, haven't you, when you want to go out and do some fishing?
Yeah, but you know, there was no way out of this one. You know, so I had to agree. I think we agreed or they was going to be there for 4 days. So I think we got a couple of days, and then they was there for 4, and then we had like 1 or 2 on our own. Just no way around it. So what it was, interesting enough, actually, that camera crew were contracted to Bernie Eccleston.
Really?
Yeah, and after they left us, maybe it was May.
Right.
It was Italian. It was off to film the Italian
The Grand
Prix straight from us. I think they told us that he had about 250 videographers then in those days.
Wow.
Eccleston owned all the rights except to film every Grand Prix except BBC.
Wow.
So no wonder he's had so many billions.
It's not a bad job after the old Kevin Nash show, is it?
Bad end of it, you got to film some smelly ass fisherman, but then you go down to the Italian Grand Prix with all the the cars, the birds, and oh God, believe me now. Yeah.
Classic. Forget the cars.
Forget the cars. Funny thing about Italian women, they're either drop dead gorgeous or big and fat. There's nothing in the middle, is there?
The most sweeping. That is Italian Women 101 from Kevin Nash.
Yeah. I'm so naughty, where was I? Yeah, so so off we went. So we arrived at the lake. Oh, that's right. We was under the we had some help from an Italian shop, a retailer.
Right.
They was going to stay the weekend. So they was 2 of them were bivvied up in a 2-man. It's another funny thing about Italians, they always share bivvies.
Do they?
Yeah. Won't go into that either. But so they took our left, and I guess this island, like I said, we was sideways onto it. I guess it was at least a couple 100 yards out. So that was the name of the game. Row the baits out. And it was really almost impossible fishing. There was massive amounts of fermentous algae on the bottom, blanket weed, and the water was just warming up, and it was blowing up, to the surface. So you put your line out 200 meters, and then this weed would all come up and blow into it and start dragging your leads, well away. It really was hard fishing. I think I put like 12 back leads on.
Yeah.
Trying to get it out. But the irony of it was, the first evening, I just set up, just all chilling, and I saw a carp fin come out, literally a metre off my rod tip.
Really?
So after, after putting that rod out and all that hassle, 200 metres, I wound one in and just flicked it in the margin, and it went off that night. It was 30 something, can't remember how big.
Oh, wow.
And that was the only carp we caught all week.
Really?
Yeah, never caught anything for the camera crew. So,
You've not had some luck on the trips. You've had the algae. Mind you, you've managed to catch one here, which is good.
Yeah, that was, so in a way, that was a result. But what had happened was we were too late. The carp had moved out from the island. Right. We should have been there really in the pitch of winter, with snow there and everything. We'd gone too late. The information was a bit bum there. So it's the only lake I know where, in the Alps where you go in the winter.
Yeah.
But so I think it was a bit of a result. At least I can say I caught a carp there.
Yeah, Italy ticked off the list. Again.
Well, we got rid of the camera crew, so that was remorseless. I think I spent half a day doing a plumbing sequence and catapulting baits to it, but then they went. And it's one thing I'll never forget about that lake, this story. We must have mobiles now, actually, because I rang in work. And Andy, this is Gary's missus. Wasn't his missus then. She's basically probably was the office manager. I just rang in to say, is everything okay? She said, yeah. She said, Ronnie rang. Okay. I said, what's Ronnie rang? He said, well, Ronnie's in Italy and he's heard that you're in Italy. Rumours got out. I said, okay. I said, what do you tell him? He said he asked where you was, and I said I didn't know. I just said I knew you was a lake up in the mountains. And she said, "Oh, Ronnie's going to come and see you." And I said, "Oh, okay, don't be silly, Anne. You know, he's being silly. Yeah, I knew where he was. You know, I said he's well down, like he's 450 kilometres away. Yeah, and anyway, we're on a 2,000 hectare lake, not acre, hectare lake.
Yeah.
How the hell is he going to find us? He walked into our swim that evening.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't believe it. Me and Pinky are seeing that.
How's he done that?
He just walked into our swim. Well, the one thing about Ronnie is he's got no concept of driving distance being aggravation. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's because he's European, but he just get into I likened it afterwards. That would be an equivalent. Me sitting in Essence of thinking, I'll go to Loch Lomond and find me mate.
Yeah.
It just blew me away. But
Nutter.
Yeah, he just turned up in the swim. He knew the lake.
Yeah.
Because he's mate. He helped. He said he knew the lake, and it was quite logical, really. He's figured out. Well, if they're up in the Alps, they must be at that lake. Mm. He knows about the lake and the island, and so it was a pretty good bet. But even so, 450 kilometre drive.
If you're wrong, innit?
Yeah, he's a character, Ronnie. He's a character.
Fair play.
Yeah, and then he walked in and swim at McDonald's.
And McDonald's as well.
Which I don't know what it is about me. And when we used to go on these trips, again, all we found was this little grocers around the corner, real rank stock. I remember we bought some bacon, which was green. It must have been in there months. So again, we ain't living too well. We're living better than other trips. But when you walked in at McDonald's, there was a McDonald's about 5 kilometres up the road. But and he had root beer. That's right. Remember that?
Root beer, nice.
I never. To this day, our McDonald's don't sell beer, root beer, do they?
No.
Whereas McDonald's abroad always sell beer.
Italian McDonald's.
Yeah, and that's how. In fact, I remember Pinky, bless him. He went on holiday with his wife. I think that was to Italy, and he was gagging for a beer, but she wouldn't let him stop in the pub. And so he said, look, there's a McDonald's, so he get the kids a McDonald's. So he bought me McDonald's and got his beer. She said, you knew you'd get a beer. And he said, no, how would I know?
Did it for the kids. I can't imagine McDonald's in Italy doing particularly well. Italians are very passionate about food, mate, aren't they? No.
I think McDonald's do everywhere now.
Yeah.
For the youngsters, don't they? Sadly.
Convenience.
There's convenience in it. Well, France, for example.
Yeah.
With their history of food, who would have thought McDonald's would do well there? But they're everywhere now. It's just convenience food, isn't it?
So from Italy and that trip, obviously it was hard work, but you managed to catch one. Did you decide on sort of any subsequent trips out to there, or was that another one where it was sort of done and off the list?
No, so I've always had an affection with Italy and Italians. I love their excitement and their massive passion. I adore the culture of the country.
Yeah,
the architecture and the food. Fantastic food. So I was really interested to get back. So I don't think I knew an English angler had ever been there. So there's Ronnie trekking down and us, and thinking back, I don't know anyone else who fished it in those days, other than the Italians, of course. And the Italian carp scene is beginning to kick off. Just like the acceptance of the English methods. Because that is in reality what it was. Whether it be Holland, Belgium, France, it was embracing the English style of carp fishing that was taking off. So there's all that buzz going on. If you ever met another Italian angler, just such a great experience because they're so excited to meet you, and look at all your tackle. So.
What was that like around? Because obviously you've travelled a fair few places in Europe. Nash is spreading its wings as a company and getting out there. What was the reception like generally? Was it quite like starstruck from a lot of people that were on the bank, like Kevin Nash is here, like whoa?
It was, and like I said, Ronnie's rang the office because a rumour's got out that Kevin Nash is in Italy. And he found out because a couple of anglers turned up at the lake he was on and went running over. And said, "Do you know Kevin Nash is in Italy?" So there was a lot of hero worship, which I dealt with very badly.
Go on, unpack that then.
I'm just an ordinary guy. I think I've said before, I'm actually quite shy. I can be extrovert in company of friends, and the right party animal, but not with strangers. And I just never got it. I didn't get it for years. So I'm just guys have come up to me. I'm just one of them and normal. Whereas they're worshipping you. And I just never could understand, and even to this day, I would argue the point that you could be idolised or looked at, if you like, in similar ways to a top footballer or a music star. But in some people's eyes, and certainly a lot of people, I and other anglers are seen like that. I guess it took me a long time to understand that everyone needs a hero. And I think not only did I struggle with it, I probably didn't handle it well or handle it in the right way, in as much as I wasn't acknowledging their worship. Worship is a bad word, but acknowledging what I meant to them.
Yeah.
I should have, in retrospect, really appreciated that a lot more, I think. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't being rude or blanking people.
No.
I would just play it down and say, I'm just like you, I just catch carp. But they didn't want to hear that. They wanted they wanted to get down on their knees and worship me. But
crazy times.
Great times though, so Italy, I just loved the vibe over there. So we heard of a lake that had done, I think it had broken the Italian record. Again, it was up in the mountains, completely different area of Italy. I'm not sure I'm going to actually be too specific about this one,
right?
Because I'm not sure how well known it is now. But so we arranged a trip to go there. Pinky, he lived in Hampshire. We were going from Stansted. Pinky lived in Hampshire. He'd come up the night before, so we could have an early set off to Stansted. And we're watching the news, and it's talking about this airline that is going bust. Guess whose airline it was? So we rang him up. Oh no, it's all right. It'll be all right. It's your flight tomorrow. It wasn't. So we went out the next day.
So you got a flight on a different airline the next day?
Different airline another day. Lost all that money.
Oh, mate. Not the one.
Not the one. I know people lost their money the last year.
Yeah.
Or still waiting to it. So we got out there the next day, met this Italian who we understood was going to fish with us. He took us on a long drive. It's 2.5 hour drive, I think, from the it's Rome airport up into the mountains. Very interesting lake. We got there and he introduced us to an Italian friend of his who didn't speak one word of English, and then he drove off.
Right.
Found out later that he was married. Found out later he had some bird, and he spent the week with her instead of fishing with us.
This has got all the hallmarks of a classic Nashy trip, mate. Flight cancelled, then you've got some philanderer.
So we're stuck with this Italian who can't speak a word. Anyway, the lake had a large centre area, and kind of arms going off it. It was like a river system that then flowed into the main delta, but it wasn't connected to the sea. So so we're fishing. The Italian fished into the main basin.
Yeah.
And we fished a little way up this very wide arm. We was again another kind of funny story, like the mountain one. We was told the carp spent their summers up in the arms and then moved into the main water, main area of water in the autumn. And this was autumn. We did learn from our Italian friend Nono, he'd been fishing a week, so the carp weren't in the main area of water yet. He hadn't seen any, so we elected to fish up this arm. Some quite interesting far bank features. 350 metres to my right was a little island in the middle, and that was it. So plotted up in there, and we really struggled for 5 days, never saw a sign of fish or anything. And then it was a particular colder night, this fog had come in. It was beautiful lake. You'd look out, in the far distance, you could see mountains with snow on the peaks. And on that far bank where he was fishing to, the Italians were hunting what do you call it? Wild pig, boar.
Boar, yeah.
Boar with dogs. It's really really interesting place. Anyway, I think it was the 5th night, this real cold fog coming. We've been sitting with the Italian, drinking all night. Coffee, believe it or not.
Coffee.
Espresso, yeah. That's the first time I'd ever drunk espresso. He'd offered us coffee. Yeah. So gave us a little cup of it. Put about 1/3 sugar in it, and the rest of his espresso. He had one of those espresso makers, have you seen them? That like multi-sided.
Yeah.
So just put them on the cooker.
Yeah.
And so he made us one. I think just out of politeness, he said, "You want another one?" I said, "Yeah." He looked at me really shocked. Yeah. By the time I'd done 6, he's blown away.
I bet.
Coffee has never had any impact on my ability to sleep.
6 of them, and you could still go sleep?
Oh, yeah, easy.
Oh, my days.
Anyway, so we had that evening with it, and we've gone back, and I never get Pinky yawning, so I'm going to get my head down. And I must have been buzzing a bit from the coffee. So I thought I'd sit up for a little while. And far to me right, I saw a fish roll along the margin. First one I'd seen. I thinking about it's a bit like canaries. I watched it rolling nearer and nearer, and then a fish rolled in front of me. We had our rods to the far margin features. There was nothing really on our bank except submerged bushes, and it's quite shallow. And it rolled probably 30 yards out. So I wound the bait quickly in, cast to it, and I got a take. Couldn't believe it. And I'm playing it, but the problem is I've got these submerged bushes and lines everywhere, and it's very shallow. So I really needed someone just to wade out and net it.
Yeah.
So Jeff. Oh, Jeff, I've got a fish, mate. So I finally woke him up. He come and netted it. Yeah, so well chuffy that. I'm going back to bed. Okay, mate. But Jeff, might be worth staying up, mate. So I've just seen one. Might be some others. I'm going back to bed. Okay. So I sat there, and another one's rolling. And another one's rolling. Getting nearer and nearer. So I decided to bring all 3 rods in. Another take. Playing it. Jeff. Really having grief here, lines, bush. Jeff! Couldn't wake him up. So I sorted it all out myself. Anyway, I've had another 2.
Wow.
Right. So, it's freezing fog. I'm just walking, backwards and forwards between the rods and down the bank to try and keep warm, because we didn't really have really good kit to be outside your sleeping bag, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
We're all right in your sleeping bag, but not enough kit really. It really was dropping temperatures probably starting in winter. So I'm walking upwards and down, say, I've caught 2 more. I'd put one rod down on that island, 350 metres. I know it's 350 metres because I had 350 metres of braid and then back in with mono.
Right.
And it went just past me, braid knot. And I saw an enormous swirl in the moonlight, even though it's foggy. Anyway, then that rod roared off. And I'll never forget it to this day. I picked up the rod. I used to backwind then.
Yeah.
Well, I still do backwind. I picked up the rod, and I'd never fished braid right through. And, it's strong braid. I picked up the braid of the rod, and I got flatline straight away, and the reel grabbed out of my hand. I'm screaming at the Jeff to get the boat. Anyway, I've got the rod back up, and then another enormous lunge, and again I got flatline. It snatched the reel out of my hand. I'm screaming as loud as I can to Jeff to get the boat so I can go after it.
Yeah.
Take some of this grief out, and anyway, I got hold of the handle. I played it for about another minute. I'm wading in the water, trying to get to the boat. I'm wading backwards in the water, trying to get to the boat while I'm trying to deal with this monster. The power is just unbelievable. Suddenly, I was completely flattened again. Rod pulled, bang.
No.
I've had few captures that have meant the loss has meant so much as that. I just never hooked anything of such power. Some of it was obviously to do with the through braid, but I've just never experienced power like it before or since. And I think I put it down to Pinky.
Yeah. Was he literally just, you couldn't round him at all?
I think I caught another 6.
Wow.
No, I've done the maths wrong. I had a total of 14.
That's some work.
Total of 14. All night long. It's just a question of watching till you saw one. I was putting PVA bags on, casts a PVA bag to it, and you get the take pretty quickly. So I was probably catching one, I don't know, every half hour or whatever hour.
All on boilie, is this as well?
Yeah, just on my crumb approach. I wasn't using crumb. Yeah, it was just PVA bags of boilies.
Scopex boilies again.
Scopex boilies. The reason I'm using PVA bags is because it probably didn't matter there, but I've noticed for years that carp don't like having leads chucked on their heads if they're fish for, but a PVA bag makes a completely different noise, so they weren't used to it then.
Yeah.
Certainly weren't in Italy, so I'd have no worries about casting right on top of them. Certainly didn't spook them. Might have attracted them, thinking it's one of their mates. But so I'm just catching all night. Just walking backwards and forwards, trying to keep warm in the freezing fog. Trying to amuse myself between takes. I'd go up and kick Pinky's bed, pull his ears. I'm just so pissed with him. I've lost the fish of a lifetime because of him, so I wanted to torment him as well. But there was nothing waking him up. Anyway, I'll never forget. I'm standing there, shattered, absolutely shattered.
I bet.
Save all this action and all that, freezing cold. Lights come up, and I heard, oh. I looked around, and Pinky's woke up and he just put in one leg over the side of his bed chair, and he said, I've had a fuck of a night. I haven't slept all night. Damn, fuck it. I lost it. I completely lost it. I was screaming at him at the top of my, I completely lost it. I'll never forget it. He's just gone, whoa.
What a wake up that is.
What a wake up. Nashy demented, he just, looking back at it, God knows, poor old blokes, one of the nicest people, I've met, Jeff, and suddenly he's had this barrage, I'll never forget that.
What were the size of the fish that you did catch, mate?
They weren't huge. I think the biggest was about 30.
Right.
20 20s doubles, but I remember the Italian come down. He was well impressed, because he didn't know what was going on. He just come down. Well, I think I had about 6 or 8 in sacks, only because we didn't have enough sacks, but I kept the best 6 or 8.
Yeah.
He come down as we was photographing in the morning.
Wow. And he'd still had none in the main area?
He'd had none in the main area. And then he's got to then take us by a boat across this big expanse of water where we're meeting the other guy who's meant to have been fishing with us, but he's been shagging all week by these houses. So we're packed up, we've agreed to pack up.
Yeah.
And we just packed up and I saw him out in the boat. What's he going out in the because he was packing up as well, so I couldn't quite understand why he's going out in the boat. I figured, what he must be doing then, he's baiting. And he's coming back another day. Yeah. I looked and the boat's gone to right across the lake. Okay. He got out the lake, got in his car, drove off, and what's that about? He'll be back in half an hour because we've got to go to the airport. Didn't come back.
What?
Standing there, what? Eventually he did come back. He's rowed over, and I've still got it today. Bless him. He bought us each one of these, espresso coffee makers.
Did he?
Bless him. I've still got it.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
They're quite popular in carp fishing now, isn't
Yeah. It's quite trendy, isn't it?
Quite trendy, yeah. But say this is the 90s. But
ahead of the game as always.
Ahead of the game as always. But yeah, so he took us over there. Matey turned up, and he insisted we see his wife and have a meal with her. Typical Italians. I'm thinking, it's bloody tight for the airport. So we had a meal with her, and he got us to the airport 25 minutes before the flight.
Right.
Really? So we run through the airport. We got these plastic tubes with the rods in over our shoulders, back rucksacks. Pinky always camoed up. I would have been in green.
Yeah.
Didn't give a good impression.
No.
Next thing, we got like 6 soldiers round us and saying, "Can I have your passport?" I said no. I was always taught, don't. You
said no.
Don't let anyone take your passport away. Next thing I know, I got an Uzi here, an Uzi in me back, of me neck. Saying like, there was just. Not the brightest, these Italians, are they? If you was a terrorist, you wouldn't be running through fucking Rome airport, in full camo with a plastic, with a gun over your shoulder, would you? But anyway, so they took our passports away, and they just deliberately, I think, took their time. But they come back. We had to leg it, absolute leg it. We got that plane by about 1 minute to spare. We went straight to the gate. We didn't even check in.
But you made it though.
Amazingly, we got to the gate, we explained the situation, they let us on the plane, we hadn't even checked in.
That is lucky.
Yeah, you wouldn't even, again, there's something else you wouldn't attempt now, is it? But,
no.
But yeah, another mad trip.
Italian Uzi gate, my days, mate. You've had some experiences, haven't you?
Oh yeah, so having a Uzi up my throat and back of my head was not one I really want to repeat, but yeah.
But as a fishing experience, brilliant though. Italy, as you say, burgeoning scene, like.
Well, there's a sting in the tail to this story. 3 weeks later, I'm on. I'd used amnesia hook links.
Yeah.
All through.
Okay.
And 3 weeks later, the Italian carp record was broken on that lake.
Don't.
It had a rig in its mouth with amnesia. Yeah.
Never.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey-ho.
I don't even know what to say. I feel awful here listening to it, mate.
Dirty Great Common. I can't remember what the weight it was.
Oh, mate, it's irrelevant, isn't it? It's definitely that fish if it's got your hook length in it as well.
Yeah. Well, I've always said, all you got to do is hook them after that. It don't matter, does it?
Well, you need a mate who can
who wants
up.
to net it or photograph it?
You need a mate who can wake up, mate. Unbelievable, imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it wasn't
If
me.
you could have seen, I can still see how I lost it with Jeff, shouting at the top of you fucking man, you've been asleep. I've been kicking you, I've been trying to wake up for 18, 14, I absolutely, completely lost it.
Yeah.
Funny. I wish he was still alive today to tell this story. I'd probably tell him. I'd love to hear it from his side.
That is one alarm clock. It's going to definitely perk you up, mate. Right, Kev, so that pretty much rounds off the Italian chapter, if you like. Just to sort of bring things back domestically, what sort of time are we talking? Is it 90s, mid-90s?
Yeah, there, and just going beyond that, yeah.
And a bit of sort of background.
I bounce backwards and forwards with a couple of stories, but yeah, you're talking basically mid-90s.
Brill. In terms of a sort of a concept of where Nash Tackle is, we talked in the previous podcast episode about you outsourcing production to China. So in this period of time, where do things stand with Nash Tackle, Nash Bait wise?
Taking Nash Bait first, that's really kicking off now, really establishing it, and we're becoming really big players at it. Mainly because of Scopex Squid, that was a game changer. That bait, absolute game changer. Did I tell the story of it?
You didn't. You didn't tell the story of how Scopex Squid came to be.
What happened was, it's very early 90s now. Gary showed me a paper where he's researching when they grade fish, trout or salmon it was. They grade them. It was in Canada. When they grade them, they have huge mortalities because they don't carry on feeding properly, and they come up with this squid extract where results are remarkable. 60% more successful. Blah blah. So I read the paper. I said to Gary, "Can you get some?" And he got a sample, kilo sample. I'll never forget, lorry driver delivered it, and he had a lorry full of dresses or whatever as well. And he'd come in the office swearing and cursing. What the hell was that? It's all me lorry smells now. I'm going to get in right trouble. Anyway, it did stink. And I told the story about the stock taking and shellfish sensor peel, didn't I?
No.
And the dog.
No. None of this has been in there, mate. No.
Really?
Yeah, no. You've just talked about, I think, Gary being on board.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I've not had this in here.
Okay, well, I'll tell you that story in a minute then. So we've got this kilo sample, this stinky stuff, and what we're going to do with it? Well, Gary would never test. He basically went fishing to catch fish, and he just didn't want to be the guinea pig testing.
Right.
So it's down to Nashy. And I made reference earlier about Starlane, so I actually took it there. And that's when I realised Starlane had changed so much. Yes, I caught on it, but I didn't exactly rip it apart. And what I didn't know was whether it was down to the bait squid wasn't that good, or had I completely not kept up and lost touch with Starlane. So I really was in a quandary. So needed more because I'd used it all in a couple of months of messing around on Starlane. Anyway, they wouldn't give us another sample. We had to order half a ton. And what was it? I'm probably going to get this well wrong. It was somewhere, I think, around £20 a kilo.
Wow.
So we're taking an enormous punt, on half a ton at £20 a kilo. It was, in business, it's about gambling at times. Just the trick is not to gamble what would put you under. So I decided to take this enormous gamble, and we ordered half a ton, and the rest, as I say, is history.
Good gamble, mate.
Yeah, so it's a really good gamble, and it paid off. And thinking of that stinky stuff, it reminded me of the stock take that year. We was doing this stock take, did it the weekend, so it didn't disrupt daily business of the office. So we used to do it on a Saturday. Thought we finished by Saturday evening, and we didn't. And there's nothing more demoralising to my mind than bloody stock take, just counting stuff all day. So knew we had to go in on the Sunday. We got to Sunday lunchtime and we still hadn't finished it.
Oh.
So I had enough. So I said to him, come on, I'll take you all down the pub, have a couple of beers and a lunch, and then cheer ourselves up and smash the last bit out. As we was driving to the pub, I remembered Gary was in the bait factory doing his stock take. So I thought, it's unfair for us to go down the pub and not invite him. So I said, I'll see you in the pub and I'll swing round to Gary's factory. Mm. I've gone in and he's finished his stock take. He was actually upstairs bottling shellfish sensapil. Right. I don't know whether you smelt shellfish sensapil, but next to the squid powder, it's probably the most awful other smell in the universe. It smells like concentrated rotten socks. And when Gary bottled flavours, it was 2 bottles of liquid would go in the bottles and 1 bottle would go over him. It's just washing it, So, and anyway, I just stuck my head upstairs. He told me, he'd shouted across that he'd finished the stock take, and so I said, we're going down the pub. He said, so I'll meet you in there. Anyway, this pub, it's kind of long pub. It had a door at the end, which you would go in if you was in the car park. So we all walked in that door. And then it had another door halfway along its long length. You had the main front door. And saying a bar, basically the whole length. Mm. Okay, so we walked in, picked one of the first tables, sat down, then Gary comes in, sits down with us. And the moment he sat down, I thought, fuck, he's absolutely stinking of shellfish sensapil. Gary, fuck's sake. Of course, he just, typical Gary, he just thinks he's a great laugh. So he's like, he's happy now, he's winding up everyone. There was a table next to us, a group of 8, and it's like, Jesus, what's that smell? They soon went, and it's the bar is slowly emptying, the pub's emptying. I kid you not, people are coming in that right hand door, walking in, saying, fucking hell, what's that smell? And then walking out the main centre door I told you. Anyway, I took my dog, my Doberman with us. Just sitting in the corner, mind his own business. And a waitress come over, cleaning the table, that lot next door. And I said, funny smell in there, isn't there, love? And she said, yeah, there is. No, sorry, I've got that wrong. Sorry, the manager come over. Sorry, I got that wrong. The manager come over. And he said, excuse me, mate, we don't allow dogs in here. I went, okay. So I put Khan in the motor. Yeah. Anyway, it's getting worse and worse. The air's going bluer and bluer. And it's ended up, like I said, the table next door have gone. Everyone's gone. There's just a couple of probably the alcoholics pinned to the far left-hand wall by the chimney. The rest is empty. The whole pub's empty. Anyway, this is where I got it wrong. So the waitress comes over and she's cleaned the table next door. And I'm really embarrassed by the smell and Gary. I said to her, funny smell in here, isn't there, love? She said, yeah. She says, someone had a dog in here earlier. We think it's shit in the corner. So my dog, Khan, got the blame.
Oh, Basie.
Yeah, Basie, yeah.
Classic. So bait-wise...
Bait-wise, we're doing well, unless you go to a pub.
Yeah, unless you go to a pub, I was thinking of it.
Yeah, the luggage and all that, it's gone to China now, and we've sorted out the quality. Like I said, we have some issues sorting out the quality like so many companies do in those days, which is probably why China got a bad reputation. So it wasn't the Chinese's fault, it was the people taking the work to them, not making sure it's a sufficient quality. Plus, everyone wanted it cheaper as well.
Yeah.
They just never got it. You're told a price, oh no, you must be cheaper. Get it cheaper, down. So they would get it cheaper by cutting the quality. Yeah. So I learned, don't accept their price. If you can make enough money, then accept it. So, but yeah, so that was happening. Titans were flying now. It's the biggest selling bivvy in the history of angling. And as I said, they was all made in this room. Yeah. We didn't make them in China. It was a long, long time before they went to China. Until I was satisfied they could get the quality. And we're getting to the time where Nash start doing their own rods.
Big step.
I'd left Dawa over the saga with the royalty thing. And the money massively dropped. I was getting £1, a measly £1.50 a rod, but I had it off. When I joined Dawa, I was looking at a bite alarm. A guy called Jürgen Fechner had gone to John Middleton with his bite alarm design, and they'd taken it on. He'd agreed to pay the tooling. They got the first off the moulds, and there was issues, and John was worried about running up more and more money, and he was thinking of scrapping it. Well, I was an ex-engineer, as you know, and a mould maker tool maker amongst other things. So I offered to take the project on. This was the days before Delkim or Fox, so you just had the optonics, whatever. In fact, I think Fox or Delkim might have been next year, just from the cusp of it all.
Right.
So I saw it was an improvement, and saw the potential. And I agreed a royalty of £2.50 a head with him. Okay. Anyway, I got it all sorted and cracked, and then I tested it, and I poured a bucket of water. It was at Waterways.
Was it?
Yeah. So it gives you an idea when it was. It was Waterways when I tested them. Just remembered. And it started making all squawking noises. And I said to him, there's a waterproof issue. I said, we need to sort it before you put it out. But he didn't.
He didn't sort it?
They put him out at the next trade show. And they was an enormous success initially. And I'll never forget the next summer. It was my royalty payment time.
Yeah. And
he sat me down and said, okay, £1.50 for a Dictator, £2.50 for an Amorphis. And he looked at me and he said, 50 pence for a Sensatron. I went, no, John.
50 pence, cheeky.
250. He went, okay. And I got a cheque in the post for 70 grand from my royalty. And I'll never forget, it just been in the paper that Bob Nudd, our best matchman at the time, had done a deal with Browning, I think for 3 years. It was worth 100 grand.
Yeah.
And I just got a 1 year cheque for 70 grand.
That is good going, mate.
Oh, it's an enormous amount of money. It was half the price of a house.
Yeah.
A big house as well. But within a year, that was all over because so they got such a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And I was just living on the rod money, royalty. Well, Nash is now a lot bigger, so really doing well on bait, Titans, massively growing. And so we could afford to bring out our own rods, which would have been worth a lot more money than the pittance I was getting from Dar as a royalty. Firstly worked with Century, but then I heard Nabal Nadira had left Dawa. How it worked with Dawa, the Japanese, they would send their technicians over to Scotland for 2 or 3 years, either to learn the ropes or to help Scotland, I don't know which. Nabal was so talented, John Middleton persuaded Dawa Japan to let him keep him. And so he lived there for many years. I don't know how many, but certainly at least 10 or more years. In fact, it was said that he designed over 2,000 Western rods.
Wow.
A huge number. Say the most experienced rod designer in the world by far. But then Japan, Dar's luck in Japan fell and they wanted him back, so he got called back. But he couldn't cope with being institutionalised into the Japanese way again after being experienced in the Western way. And so he walked from Dara, and I found out about it, and we got together and designed the range of pursuits, which become really, really popular. Well, they would do because it was basically just based on the Amorphis,
Yeah, yeah. That's timing, isn't it, mate, that?
Yeah.
Results. So obviously tackle wise things are going well, ramping up. In terms of domestically, before obviously we talked about your subsequent travels, there was a chapter on Starlane. You caught the big one out of there. Domestically, where was your focus in the time that you had to commit to fishing? Was there any new venues, or was it Starlane again?
It was Starlane, but I pulled off after a little while after that big one, saying I'm now just dabbling around, going all sorts of places, not getting into anywhere. In fact, you mentioned Rob Hughes. I went with Rob Hughes and Crowe to Waveney, for example, for a session. I was going just popping around, really, not getting into anything. I think doing Carp Society fishings with the kids and stuff, but I didn't have target water basically. Gary was on the manor, and he'd done his backing. I think he's been on there at least a couple of years, maybe 3. And he's so desperate to catch the amphibian, keeps coming out, and he's not catching it. He's coming out from his swims. He just wouldn't listen. He's concentrating on one area and absolutely filled it full of bait. And people would just move in on him. And catch the Annie when he weren't there. That happened at least 2 or 3 times by at least one very well-known angler. I used to say to him, just don't concentrate your baiting like that in there, because they're not like the kind of anglers who will respect that and keep away from it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he'd done his back, and he was just so desperate to go over there fishing. I didn't have, like I said, anything on, so I agreed to be his ghillie. And just help him with his gear, and just basically set up and chill on the bed chair. Spend the night chatting with him, blah blah. Anyway, I did that, and 2 things really struck me. Was he kept getting bleeps, right, and he wouldn't acknowledge that he was getting done. I've learned enough now that these carp are getting away with it. He just wouldn't have it. Gary can be very obstinate like that. If just to spite his own face, at times, or he might say something silly, and you never back down. I remember we was fishing once. Just remember this story, and we're cast into this island which had shallow gravel margins. Rock hard gravel. It was long chuck, and this is in the days when you're using long, torpedo shaped leads, and they was getting bent. Wow. We're on the long chuck, they're impacting with the shallow gravel, and it's bending them. And Gary turned around and said he thought it was the fault of the cast. And he was just hanging himself more and more. I was on the floor in tears at one stage, but he wouldn't back down. He wouldn't back down. The leads were becoming banana shaped because of the force of the cast, not the fact that it was hitting. That's typical Gary. So anyway, I'm convinced he's got a rig problem on the manor, just like everyone had actually. But also, he said to me that he was convinced that the Annie never come into the margins. It was a deep water fish only, which is why he only fished in the deeper water. But he said the rest do. It's just the Annie. Well, you had a fish called the gut bucket. I think that's about 36 or 38. 36, I think, was really massive fish. Essex of those days. I think there was like 6 or so, 7, maybe 30s in there.
Yeah.
Fight Machine, Northern Mirror, I think. Really, real high number of really big fish for those days.
Yeah, definitely.
There was also one that one of our field testers had caught, Gail actually, his wife, and that was called the Big 'Un. I think she had it at 38, and then it had come out a few ounces over 40. It wasn't really talked about much. I don't think me and Gary talked about it much because it was so rarely come out. But in a nutshell, I'm just thinking the gut bucket, you had a fighting machine and all these awesome carp that come in the margins. And Gary's not interested in them because he's only interested in the Annie. And so, I didn't want to tread on his toes, which is why I hadn't gone on there earlier. But he said, come on. I'm thinking, well, I'll keep away from the deep water and the Annie. And so I'm really excited that finally I've got a new challenge. That autumn, early winter, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do the manor next year.
Yeah.
It's time when I'm working on the catalogue. And I used to get people sending reports and photos of a carp they caught on Nash bait.
Yeah.
And I just never really looked at them. I was a great one for smart working. Work on something when you need to. Yeah. So I'd just chuck them all in the box, knowing that when it come around to doing the catalogue, I'd really start studying them properly. And I was looking through them, and there's one photo, say 6 inches long, and in the middle was a lad with a carp, just tiny photo in the middle with probably like 2.5 inches of background either side him, where he'd been photographed so far away. But I looked at the fish. I thought, geez, that's an immense common, unusually short and deep, but a real immense fish. And so I checked out, and it's a place called Warmwell in Dorset. So I looked into it, and it turned out it was a holiday camp, wooden cabins, quite a few, hundreds, with a bar, stage and everything, where they had bands and entertainment. And in the middle was this lake, I reckon 1.5 acres of water. And if you rented one of the log cabins, cabins, you had a holiday there, you could have free fishing on the lake. And so I really fancied that fish. This is one of the biggest commons in the country. Really fancied it, an upper 30. And the family needed a holiday as well.
Double bubble again.
So I thought, I looked at it and thought, okay, I could do the manor in the spring, as soon as that was viable in terms of fish waking up.
Yeah.
Warmwell had the old close season rule on it, so it wouldn't open until June the 16th. So I could go down there at the start of the season, do a week with Gary, and then of course there's a family holiday.
Yeah.
So that could be like July, go down for 2 weeks, and then I worked out. Then I thought, okay, I'll go down there a week a month, with or without the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rent the chalet for the week and just fish. And in between, I can fish the manor. So that was my plan.
Yeah.
So I'm now going to hit 2 major venues, the manor and Warmwell.
Yeah, nice.
However, I'm feeling I'm not up to the job.
In what way?
Because I haven't been on a hardcore circuit water for so long. Keeping in touch with methods, and really feeling in tune with it. You remember when I went to Gran Canaria, I had a great season's fishing after that. What that taught me is that if you really want to do well on a new water, particularly if it's a big challenge, you need to be on one and really feeling super confident before you go on it. Get on the water and fill your boots, and then you're in the right mindset to attack your challenge. And so I felt out of depth, if you like, for me. I wouldn't say out of depth is the wrong word. I felt that I wasn't on the top of my game.
Yeah.
But I did feel that I had a lot of questions I wanted answered, and I had some great ideas, the blowback ring rig for one. I knew I had edges. I knew I had the Scopex Squid, but as I say, I think Starlane had given me a bit of a kicking, whereas I thought I'd go on there and absolutely smash it. Yeah. Like I said, I tested the squid I caught, but I did not smash it by any means. So I decided to go back to Starlane for the very early spring. If you like early, just straight after winter. Sorry,
this is after you've caught the big one, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
this is
gone
next
back
year.
on. Okay, cool.
Like I said, I didn't stay after I caught the big one.
Yeah,
a couple more sessions and I went, but now I want to really get tuned up. So I decided to move on to Starlane March into April until I felt it's warming up a bit to have a go at the manor. I knew from Gary that the fish would move into the shallows after a week of warmish weather. And remember, I'm only interested in the shallows, so I've got to wait and say until it warms up, hopefully back end of April or May. So that was a plan. I moved on to Starlane early March. First session, I actually fished that Brickfield Point where I told you Dave Potter fished.
Yeah.
And got there, I think, an hour before nightfall. From memory, there was a gravel bar in front of me, a margin, not that far out. I knew it was there because I'd seen a car parked on it some years before.
Right.
Mad shit. Behind the Brickfield Point was a field. And I went down to see one of my mates who had done the night on Brickfield Point and turned up, and there's a car sticking half out of the water in front of him. And he said to me that some kids had nicked a car and were riding around the field in the middle of the night and just went straight over his head into the bloody lake. Ooh. Lucky it didn't kill him.
I was going to say, it's a lucky escape, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was stuck on this bar. So I was plumbing for this bar and this snowstorm coming. It was so dense I couldn't even see my marker float. I blanked that night. I went back 3 nights later. Really windy night. One of those nights you think, why have I come? It's March. It's bloody cold. I've got zero confidence. And then it started snowing as well. In fact, it was so strong, the wind. I just remembered I bent the ribs on my oval while I was setting it up. So I was just under an oval, I remember now, with snow blowing around, really cold. And out of nowhere, I couldn't believe it. I got a bite, a take. And I ended up the night with 3, if I recall.
Wow. 3 snow carp?
Yeah, correct me. I may get some of my figures wrong because it's in the book, innit? So please, people, bear with me. But I think I caught 3 that night, 2 20s. And as you say, snow carp. I was absolutely buzzing. It's the first time I'd ever managed to have a catch of a decent carp, with snow on the ground. It's very hard to do. Said before, didn't I? Normally the lakes freeze. So I was so chuffed. Frank, the owner, he come round that evening and he promised me he'd be round first thing in the morning for a cuppa. He used to love, you spend a lot of time in swim. I'd known him, I say, since I first went over there in the 70s. So, a long time. He now actually run it.
Right, okay.
And he'd got the lease off the owners. And so he said he'd be round first thing in the morning for a cuppa. And I'll never forget, I got up, really bright, cloudless sky, wintry morning, no heat in the sun, but I've slowly watched that snow melting away. He never turned up till 11.
No.
I was gutted. I actually said to him, fuck you, you're not getting a cup of tea now. So so intense on wanting that snow carp story. But yeah, when I went on there, I thought hard about the approach, and those Starlane carp were basically brought up on strawberry. Yeah, it was the first bait I used, strawberry flavour on there, I think, and they just had a penchant to it, and the anglers kept on using strawberry for years. In fact, there was an eel angler on there, and I was talking to him one day, and he said to me that the eels, their flesh was pink and tasted of strawberry. He took one home to eat it. Yeah. So even the eels are
on the strawberry.
Yeah, staple diet. Anyway, I had this cherry flavour, which I knew had some of the same notes of a strawberry. So, I'm a firm believer with bait. If you find a really successful bait and it starts dwindling because you caught so many, try and keep the essential elements, but just confuse the carp with changing some things. It's been a lesson I've learned. So I elected to use this cherry flavour.
Yeah.
I also thought they'd been smashed with boilies for so long.
Yeah.
I decided to go in with really tiny boilies. I don't know where that idea come from, but I decided to go in with just 5mm boilies,
right,
which I had to roll myself. Took me all night to roll a kilo of bait. So I'd started baiting a couple of weeks before. So 2 weeks into that, I was thinking, what have I done?
Yeah.
And it was also full of bream.
And it was full of bream with 5mm boilies.
Yeah, but I'm banking on, they're not going to be that much trouble in the winter. But I just thought fish waking up, cold weather, digestion systems, kicking in or not, they're not going to be able to eat much bait, and certainly not larger baits. I'd learned that, the colder it was, less chance, catching them on bait or volumes of it. It's obvious, isn't it? So I just thought the smaller the bait, maybe the better. So that was my plan, as I say. So second session in, oh my God, I've had 220s and a double. Yeah. And so I was really excited, really massively excited. Couldn't wait to get back.
I bet, yeah.
I was fishing midweek only. I think after that second session, that my mind was made up to fish midweek. Starlane, so very, very popular water, and it had a number of residents. So there's still anglers fishing there now. That were fishing on there when I was there in the 80s, for example. It's their home. It's strange. God knows how many times they might get caught the carp. They just love the scene, So, and there wasn't that many swims, So once I knew that anglers started fishing again, that'd be half the swims at least gone.
Yeah,
probably 4 or 6 anglers on there every day. But it had become a very hard winter water, almost impossible. So no one used to fish it in the winter, and so I decided I didn't want to, advertise the fact I was catching, which I would have done if I started fishing weekends and people just wandered over, see what the crack was, and then word could get out. So I decided just to fish midweek nights after work. So that would have been like 1 or 2 a week if I've been lucky.
Right.
So for the third one, went back the following week and fished what's called the barge point. It's halfway down the lake, fishing the main area of water, pointed up towards what I said, the Brickfield Point. And I'd won that night quite early into the session, and then I didn't catch any more. And the reason was because in the morning I wound in and I'd bream on each rod, all hooked up.
The Barrys are in.
They love it, my little 5mm cherry boys.
Yeah, perfect.
I vaguely remembered having a couple of bleeps in the night.
Yeah.
Bloody useless things, didn't they, bream?
Oh, mate.
You know, you just won't even, pull the indicators up, well, they didn't. I guess they was, what, half, 3/4 pound skimmers, you know.
Right.
So best I got just 2 or 3 bleeps on the 4-ounce leads, you know. And so, yeah, that was a waste of a night. So I thought about using running rigs, which, just weren't used. We was all on the bolt, big heavy leads and bolt rigs.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Say I was just so open. This was not about me catching carp. This was about me learning how to catch carp, if you like.
Yeah.
I was on this real mission to experiment. And so I decided to fish a running lead on one of me 3. The whole time process I was there, by the way, I was comparing different methods against other methods. So I left 2 on the fixed one, fished one running. I was very confident of fishing running leads because I'd done a lot of piking, and
Right.
I'd learned that when you're using lead with pike, you've got to have 0 resistance because they feel anything, they drop it. And we actually learned that you have to use quite a heavy lead. Don't know how much experience you've had of this, Hassan, but we found that they drop dead baits under 4-ounce leads.
Yeah.
Have you ever come across that?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what's happening is, depending what angle they move away, the lead swivels on the bottom.
Yeah.
And they feel it moving.
Yeah.
So they drop it. And so I went in with on this rig with a 4-ounce running lead, with the view that at least I'd get the indication from the bream. And if my logic was if a carp picked it up, it'd just be like a heavy hook link until it hit me, clip.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it pulled the hook in. Anyway, the rod screamed off. And I think I caught a 20 that night.
Yeah.
The other 2 rods I'd bream on in the middle of the night. So
Still all on small baits? You haven't changed the bait?
I'm still on that, yeah. So for the next session, I switched all rods to running rigs. I'll never forget that session either. I turned up again on the Brickfield Point and the lake was frozen. I cast a lead around and it wasn't thick ice. I managed to open up an area in front of me. And it was very windy, blowing up the lake. And as I'm opening up the area, the wind action is also working on the edge of the ice.
Helping you clear it.
Helping me clear it. But all the time I kept hearing crack, crack as it's getting bigger and bigger. And by nightfall, I've got an area where I can cast like 30 yards out.
Oh, nice.
So I put all the rods on the edge of the ice, and it's not long before I've had a take.
Wow.
In fact, it was really interesting. I'd 4 that night, I think. At least, 220s, I think.
Really?
Yeah, 4 that night and 220s. We have to still recognise the 20s are big fish in those days. But what was interesting, the wind's hitting the ice and say breaking it up. So by the time I've cast out and got a take, landed it, there's more clear water beyond where I cast it. And so I was casting tight to the ice, and that was the only place I was getting the takes.
Really?
Yeah.
To the edge of the ice?
The edge of the
wherever that line
ice,
was.
yeah. And I've used that to good effect since. So to just pass that little tip on. I don't know what it is, whether it's because the water's a bit warm under the ice. I just couldn't tell you. But, if you're on a lake and part of it's open and the rest is frozen, cast tight to the ice.
Yeah, mad that.
Yeah,
That's in considering the pressure that you said that it's under, the venue, considering the time of year and the conditions you've had,
I'm doing all right.
You're doing well.
Yeah, like I said about consistency, other than the first session, I haven't blanked. And it's pretty appalling weather, so snow and turned up the lake's frozen. If soon after this, maybe it's the next session, I decided to have, in essence, a couple of days off work. I was only doing, arriving after work just as light was fading, so I was in a rush to get the rods out. That session maybe made me decide, I want to get a bit earlier. So I think it was the next week. I did a Monday to Thursday morning, was it? 2 nights, Monday night, Tuesday night. No, it must have been Wednesday evening.
Wednesday.
Yeah. So I turned up for what for me was a long session. Selected a swim. It was quite bright actually. I remember it was really cold, but the sun was out. But it was freezing easterly wind. I selected a swim called the Fripney Bit. Popped some bait out and decided to try a couple of other spots. So I just left all my gear in that swim and just took a couple of rods and went into the hospital, which I mentioned before. Left of the hospital was a channel of solid reeds. And I didn't know it at this time, but I was soon to find out that is where a lot of the carp were stacked up, spending the winter. Anyway, I went in there. There's quite a lot of weed. So remembering the waterways, I put a PVA bag on and cast it into the weed, and had too long a hook link, got bit off. Yeah, quite obvious afterwards. I should have known better, but point is, if you're casting a parcel into weed, then the carp are just going to bury down, isn't they? They'd be eating it on the spot. So I made the hook link too long, and so just sitting there chomping and bit me off. But again, a bite at this time of year. Yeah. Then I went to another swim and called the Ant, and I got a bite there as well.
Wow.
Yeah, within a half hour casting out. So
is this still all small baits?
Yeah. So I've then gone back to the Fripney Bit for the night, and I think I had a couple that night as well.
Wow.
I'm mainly interested in the static swish fishing in the main swim, because that's where I was concentrating on me testing and everything. I was experimenting with the length of the hair. I found out that it's seen most effective with half an inch of separation between the back of the bend and the boilie. It's still really an amount I stick to this day. Never less.
Right.
Let's put it that way. I just really don't understand how anglers succeed fishing tight. In fact, I remember me and Gary were down at Warnwell, and there was a kid who went long from him, and I watched him have 3 or 4 takes, and he just missed them on the strike. So actually, I rang Gary. I said, Gary, go and sort that kid out. So he went up there, and I come back, and I said, what was he doing wrong? He said, bait tight to the bend.
Yeah.
It really made a big difference then. I don't know about now, but so that's one thing I worked on. Hook links was really interesting. Something I was really focused on, because what I haven't told you is I went to Warnwell that winter.
Right.
After looking at those photos and checking the place out, I found out they was basically giving away weekends just to get some revenue in winter. In fact, the Sun were running competitions where if you got 5 coupons, believe it or not, you could get a free weekend at various holiday places like Warnwell, which included Warnwell.
Nice.
I remember going down and spending X amount of money on a week's holiday, and someone comes up and says, "Oh yeah, I've just got a free holiday from the Sun." How's that work? But so me and Gary went down there for a weekend. 2 things come out of that. The 2 bailiffs come round. We got chatting with them and hit it off with them, and they agreed to bait for me in the close season. And the other thing was we blanked, but spent the weekend just talking with Gary non-stop as we used to, because I hadn't had a chance to really talk to him for ages outside of work. And he told me about this rig. Some of the lads were popularising on the manor. Say rig, it was just a hook link element mainly. The stiff rig thing had been out.
Okay.
At least a couple of years, straight through amnesia. I never really got it. I tried it at Starlane when I was testing the squid. It worked occasionally, but just no way. Did I see it as a major edge? My logic was that if a fish approached it from bait end, yeah. But if they approach, say, from the lead end, they've got to try and suck this stiff element up, and literally make it turn around the opposite way, haven't they, to get it in the hook, in the mouth, And that's why I think it was a bit iffy. I think it would only work on certain situations. It certainly didn't work on the type of bottoms I was fishing on. But then Gary showed me a version, like I said, that some of the lads were using it in a manner where they put a subtle element in the end. So they had X inches of the amnesia, and then a couple of inches of a soft braid tied to that, which they tied to the hook. And that I could really get. That really excited me. So now you've got the best of the stiff element, but they should be able to take the hook in the mouth. So I took that as something I wanted to really experiment with at Starlane. So like I said, I've got the ring blowback. Worked around on that, found I think a 4mm ring was best because I had to get it to smoothly blow back over the eye. The one thing the bream did help me with was to give me confidence that that they wouldn't blow it back over the eye while messing around. Because that was a big thing. Would I cast out and then somebody picked up the rig, blew the ring back over the eye, so it's on the hook link, on the shank, and it's going to be a completely ineffective rig. It proved utterly not to be the case. So that was probably the biggest thing that the bream did in my favour at Starlane, because at Warnwell later on, I got plagued with nuisance fish there as well, but I never had any lack of confidence, no doubts. I think it's pretty obvious if you think about it that the only way the ring can really be blown back over the eye is if they got pricked up in the first place. So I worked out the separation between the bait and the bend. I worked out how to get the best mechanics from the blowback rig out, and say the hook link proved myself it really worked. The stiff element with the soft front. Did a lot of experimentation on lengths. I'd have different lengths on each rod in the beginning. And I found out that around 9 inches definitely was the most effective.
Is that combined, soft and stiff element?
Yeah, that was combined. Every single fish I hooked, I checked the hook link. I checked the position in the mouth. And that's how the palm test come about, that I then adopted and wrote about. Because I was pulling every rig I tied. I wanted to make sure the hook would tip over and dig in. So I was pulling it across my palm, and I noticed that it would generally dig in about 1 inch or 2 inches before it got to the heel of my hand.
Okay.
Right? And I noticed I was getting the hook holds in exactly the same distances. So I really thought that the palm test was relevant.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Gary about it, and like I said, he's never going to agree. Carp ain't got fucking hands. I remember him saying that. Well, they haven't, but I think that palm test is really relevant to make sure your rig is effectively, the hook is effectively turned. I still use it to this day. And also to check the sharps of my hooks, by the way. I'll come back to that in a minute. But so did a lot of work on hook link lengths and kind of become a matter of pride to get the hook middle centre, an inch to 2 inches back. And I got to the point where towards the end where nearly every fish, was middle centre, an inch or so back, i.e., what I'm working out is if I've got the hook link too short, then it's going to be right near the front lips, or possibly they wouldn't have taken it in. If it's too long, it gave them a chance to move their heads, and that's when you'd scissor hook them. So it become a real matter of pride getting that hook link, the absolute bob on length. It would vary a bit. So Nigel Botherway had been to India, Marcia fishing, and we was talking about it one day. Might have been at Lake Sarulesti, I can't remember, but we was talking about it one day when we was fishing. And in Marcia fishing, as you know, they use huge balls of paste.
Yeah,
we say boil, don't they?
Yep.
So in essence, they've made a huge boilie, but the hook's stuck in the boilie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in it.
And it's a huge hook because the fish are so strong. Blunt, being huge hooks. Anyways, I don't know how it come about, but he started getting these huge Marcia hooks sharpened by a jeweller.
Right.
And my ears pricked up at that. And I said, do you think he would sharpen some carp hooks for me? To cut a long story short, I was paying 50 pence for this jeweller to sharpen me carp hooks as well.
Wow.
And fishing hooks sharpened against ones that weren't, it just, no argument. Even Gary couldn't have argued with that if he'd seen it. It was massive, massive difference in the takes. So so that's another thing that come out the testing. I was using PVA bags of the 5mm baits because it's the most convenient way of getting a tight baiting round me rig. But apart from that, often it was just impossible to catapult them out anyway.
Yeah, of course.
The wind and that. Making that bait was a real chore. And a lot of the time I never finish rolling it. I'd end up with a lump. I just couldn't be arsed. So I'd boil it, and I started crumbing that up to fill the PVA bag.
Yeah.
So I'd have me 5mm baits in there plus amount of crumb. And I think it was on that long session I was telling you about. The next day I got up and go and walk about. Fished a couple of spots with a couple of rods. I think I might have caught a 20 in one actually.
Wow.
And I remember it's getting late in the afternoon, so I was making my way back to my night spot. And this island was only separated by a narrow channel from the bank. From memory, it's not there now. They filled it in. God knows why they did that. But I guess it was probably only 4 or 5 meters wide.
Okay. And
I'm walking. It wasn't deep. Went into a pool, reeds in the end, at the barge point. But I'm walking along, so this is like late March, and I spotted this huge common laying next to the reeds, in like 4 foot of water. Couldn't believe it. It looked like it was asleep. So I just lowered PVA, just put the hook bait in the PVA bag, and just lowered it about a foot in front of it, and I actually saw it happen. PVA bag had some air left in it, right, and it ruptured. As it ruptured, expelling the air, it swung on the hook link, right?
Yeah.
And as it swung on the hook link, all this crumb and dust come flying out like ground bait in the water, and that carp just woke up and just launched itself
Yeah.
And immediately was hooked.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. It's a big fish, 27, 28, if I remember, common. It's actually still in there. It's the biggest common in there. Goes over 40, called Spike.
Wow.
Now, but the reaction was just incredible, and that really got me on the crumb.
Yeah.
And I was also using it in various sizes. I don't think you want a whole bag of like dust because it would just disappear. But but that dust element, definitely was one of the factors, as I saw with that fish. So I'd have 5mm boilies, saying, and then crumbing it down to various sizes and getting an element of it as dust, and not putting the lead in the PVA bag. I've often said there's two elements to bait: quality of bait, but equally important is how you present it.
Yeah.
And finding an edge that other people aren't on. For example, most obvious is everyone's using boilies, so cut the boilies up.
Yeah.
Or crumb them. Just so many ways. And I really think it was really key to my effectiveness that I was using the various sizes of crumb and not putting the lead in the bag. I was deliberately making sure there's a bit of an air in there. So when it ruptured, it swung on the hook link and just, threw all those little particles a certain distance, rather than being too tight. If everyone's using PVA bags where it just melted and the stuff was in a part on the bottom, they eventually get wise to that. Yeah. That wasn't the case then, because PVA bags were a huge edge to me in the first place, because no one was using them. It's too expensive, So that alone was an edge. So, so all these things have come together, and I never blanked after that first session, saying just...
That's mad. That whole process of experimentation, like, it is really interesting in terms of the fact that you said that you're comparing rods. So I'm guessing you're taking both rods in the same area, because essentially one variable is if you fish in a different spot with each rod, it might be the spot that's doing the bites or that's different. You're looking at hook holds. You've refined a method with the blowback rig so that it works perfectly with regards to bream and everything else. You've got a combi rig, essentially, starting, and you've also got the added sort of bonus of this crumb evolution in the space of how long, mate? How long have you been? It's not long, is it? It's like a few months, isn't it?
Well, I was on there for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's no time.
But I don't understand why anglers don't compare. It's rare. I'll never do. I'm always got at least one experiment going on, because I just want to keep learning. But getting back to what you're saying, I fish 2 or 3 rods on one spot anyway. I've always done that. It's become a trend, isn't it? What they call it now?
Yeah, free on a spot trend.
I just don't get it. I learned that. At Starlane, but I also learned it at Harefield. There was 3 bars.
Yeah.
And anglers have put a rod in each bar. And they get a bite in a bar, which that's a bar the carp would be using.
Yeah.
To
stick them all on it.
You learn to stick them all on it, but they didn't. A lot of them would still have 2 in the others. So I've always, if one area seems to be more productive, then fucking put all your eggs in one basket. It's obvious, isn't it? So I was having at least 2, more likely 3. When I was doing me sessions on me night spots, I was having 2, at least 2 or 3 rods, very tight. So it was a fair test of comparing. Really was.
That's unbelievable, though. That 6 weeks is some serious results on that pressured venue.
Well, it is without doubt one of my, if you want to call it angling achievements, it was one of my biggest angling achievements. I had 2020s, not to mention the doubles. I probably caught everything that was in there. 2020s in those days. That's a mega result. And even the rods. after about 3 weeks, it got out, and anglers are turning up now. Interesting enough, they all blanked. There was only one lad who gave me a bit of a run for my money. In fact, I got very fond of him. Sadly, he committed suicide a few years ago, actually.
Are you joking?
No. Sad, shouldn't have done it. But yeah, he was a real class angler, and he was catching a few, but other than him, no one else was. But what I noticed is the fish got really tight to the far bank. The far bank, you couldn't go round it. It was farmers' fields out of bounds, and it had overhanging bushes and mainly reeds coming out. But if you was a foot off those reeds, you wouldn't get a bite.
Wow.
You had to find the little holes in there and get it right in, or get underneath the bushes. And I was really struggling with the PVA bags, because they're not good things to cast when you've got them attached to a hook link
No.
and haven't got a lead in there. Apart from the fact the winds always be up or down this lake, and the low bushes. I don't know why I thought of it, but we'd brought the jungle stick out, 9 foot I think it was, and so I went and took 3 of them out of stock and took them down there, and that made such a difference.
Did it?
Mega. The casting accuracy. Made such a difference. It was one of the elements that I remembered a lot later with scope. But because it's not so long, the arc's lower and shallower. And it's just so much easier. So that was another thing that come out of it. But I forgot about them for years afterwards. But it was a real time of innovation and understanding, moving forward.
Yeah, like it's so. I just think if I was in that situation, I don't think I'd have the sort of acumen to do that. I'd do some experimentation. Don't get me wrong, but I think by nature that sort of innovation is in you, isn't it, mate? That's all. It's all experimentation.
It's probably. It just struck me as you're mentioning it. It's probably one of the things I can be grateful for my engineering background. I ended up. The company I ended up in, they got a lot of work building machines, basically from design. So what I'm saying is these are new concept machines, haven't been tested. They got a lot of work for a company that used to provide cosmetics,
right,
like creams and all that. So I'll never forget we had to build this machine for filling cream tubes.
Okay.
And it had been designed on paper. It hadn't been tested. Never been the one built. And so so we made all these components and put this machine together, and it never worked.
No.
We'd have to work out why one element didn't work, and then you're just moving on to the next element, why that didn't work, and then you move on to the next element and why that didn't work, and then that's compounded on the first element that you got working, stopped working. And remember I mentioned why.
Yeah.
That's why I learned to ask why.
Yeah.
So that was probably really beneficial for me in my thought process to working on ideas and working problems out, and still to this day. So I'm more interested in how they work than catching them now, for sure. I'll happily give a rod to someone. I'm not joking.
No,
so I'm not.
I believe you.
Don't want to get my hands slimy. But I've said for many years, when the indicator's risen, it's all over. So that's where the buzz and the satisfaction for me is getting that indicator to rise. I'm not interested in fighting the bloody thing or posing with a photo. The real buzz is coming up with an idea or something.
As you say, mate, it's that sort of innovative mindset, isn't it, mate? You're, it's you. Thank God for it. With that very fertile ground on Starlane, I think we're going to leave off here for this part, Kev. Once again, a massive thank you to you, and a massive thank you to everybody for watching and listening.
You haven't said awake.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. I'm sure they have too. We'll be back very soon with part 6 of the Kevin Nash Carp Fishing Journey story. Cheers, mate.